Hello, and welcome to South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Our cover story tonight is from Pakistan. The floods there have affected almost 33 million people. Houses, bridges, and roads have been wiped away by the water. But now history itself is at stake. The UNESCO site of Mohenjo Daro could be at risk of flooding. The ancient ruins are located near the banks of the Indus River. If the water keeps rising, Mohenjo Daro could be affected. Historians are already sounding the alarm bells. They want the world to step in and prevent this looming disaster. On tonight's episode, we tell you why Mohenjo Daro is special, how it has withstood the flooding until now, and what can be done in the future. Also on the show,
decades of war have created a mental health crisis in Afghanistan. One therapist is chipping away at the problem, one case at a time. Nepal's biggest festival season kicks off after 2 years of COVID hiatus. Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina wraps up her high-stakes visit to India. Sri Lanka's fishermen struggle to make ends meet amid a shortage of kerosene.
almost 1/3 of Pakistan is now flooded, but the fear is that there could be more rain. If the water levels keep rising, more settlements could be flooded. The Sindh province faces the biggest risk. Located deep inside Sindh is a 4,500-year-old treasure, the ancient ruins of Mohenjo Daro. Historians fear that the site will be inundated by floodwater. What can be done to prevent such a disaster?
Pakistan's unprecedented floods have destroyed everything in its path. Houses, fields, and bridges. And now, maybe even historical sites. We are talking about Mohenjo Daro. The ruins of Mohenjo Daro are located in the Sindh province. It is almost 4,500 years old. Experts say it is one of the best preserved sites in South Asia. But the floods are threatening it. You see, Mohenjo Daro is located near the Indus River. And right now, the Indus is overflowing its banks. The good news is Mohenjo Daro's main sites have not been affected. The Buddhist stupa is intact. The inner settlement is also untouched. But officials say the outer walls and chambers were damaged by the rain. They did not give an estimate of the damage. Frankly, it is a bit of a surprise. Almost 1/3 of Pakistan is flooded. Mega cities have been overwhelmed. Yet this ancient site managed to withstand the worst of it. Guess how? Believe it or not, the ancient drainage systems are still working like a dream.
The original drainage system, which is 5,000 years old, is still functional. The rainwater flowed through the same original drainage system, and it worked during the rains.
Sindh is the worst affected province in Pakistan, so the trouble isn't over yet, but it has delayed some of the official plans. Mohenjo Daro was discovered way back in 1922. So this year, 2022, marks 100 years of the discovery. The idea was to hold a ceremony to celebrate that milestone. But now that is not possible. The workers will first repair the damaged parts. Only then will the ceremony be held. Historians are worried about Mohenjo Daro's future. They fear the UNESCO site could be wiped out if the rain gets worse. The historic floods could be washing out Pakistan's history. South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
The last 1 year has been extremely traumatic for Afghan citizens, especially for the women. Much of the progress made in the last 20 years was wiped out by the Taliban. As a result, mental health issues are on the rise. The Taliban have no dedicated plan to tackle the crisis, so individual doctors and therapists must take the lead. We bring you the story of one such therapist of the Kapisa province.
This has become a daily routine for Firozan Jamshedi. The bus ride from Kabul to Kapisa may seem long, but it is necessary. Firozan is a mental health consultant. She works at the provincial hospital in Kapisa. As she dons her white coat for the day, a long queue has already formed outside. Tells you how serious the problem is.
Right now there are a lot of problems. There used to be institutions to help these people by paying them money, and those who were afraid of their fathers, brothers and husbands. There were shelters for them to stay until their problems and issues were resolved. Now there is nothing.
Most of our patients are women. The Taliban rule has throttled their life. You can imagine what it's like for them. 20 years of progress wiped out overnight. The new rules mandate them to cover their face, mostly stay at home, and deny them equal job opportunities. Firozan meets many women who've contemplated suicide.
We have too many patients. There are lots of suicides, and in May, we even had 4 suicides in 1 week. One of them had hung herself and the other 3 had eaten rat poison and the families did not know. They said a 5th one killed herself with a hunting rifle. They said she killed herself, but we know that her brother or whoever it was killed her.
Firozan does important but risky work. Mental health isn't really a priority for the Taliban. This particular mental health department opened in 2013. Even back then, many questions were asked.
When the mental health department opened in 2013, at first the hospital staff considered this mental health work to be very odd. They used to say, we prescribe medicines and give treatment, but that has no effect. How could they do it with their storytelling of 10 to 15 minutes?
In Afghanistan, mental health is seldom talked about. The result? It is a silent pandemic. 1 in 2 Afghans suffer from some kind of psychological distress. The reason is obvious. Decades of war have exposed Afghans to immeasurable trauma. The fighting, the instability, the economic hardships, all of it has taken a toll on its people. In the last 20 years, things were steadily getting better. But the Taliban's return has erased all those gains.
Previously, 3, 4 or 5 men or brothers used to be busy and work. They didn't have time to come home. And if they happened to come home, there was money, work and more affection. Currently, men are also unemployed. When a man is idle at home, he becomes tense or angry.
Afghanistan needs to talk about mental health. But for that, they need a receptive government, not a regressive regime of hardliners. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
Almost 1 million Sri Lankans depend on the fisheries sector for their livelihoods. This includes fishermen, their families, and associated workers. But the recent economic crisis has upended their life. Most fishing boats in Sri Lanka run on kerosene. Since the last couple of months, kerosene is either too expensive or unavailable. As a result, many families are struggling to make ends meet. Is there a government plan to solve this kerosene shortage? If not, what will happen to Sri Lanka's iconic fisheries industry?
As the sun rises over Sri Lanka, a group of fishermen head out for their day's work. They lay their net on a beach in Mannar. It's a small island off the country's northwestern coast. These fishermen are the lucky few. At least they managed to set sail. Most of their community members are stuck on land. They have no kerosene to power their boats. Sri Lanka's economic crisis has made fuel a luxury. Kerosene is either too expensive or unavailable. And for fishermen, that means no livelihood.
Everything is difficult at the moment. There is no kerosene, there is no food at home. We only get work if we come to the sea, otherwise we do not get any. We are starving. Because of that, things are hard. My situation is really tough. I cannot do anything.
Fishing is usually a two-part job in Sri Lanka. One group goes out to sea. The second collects and prepares the catch. Sonam belongs to the second group. His age prevents him from heading out to fish. Instead, he stays back to collect and prepare the catch. But due to the lack of kerosene, too many people are vying for the same job. Where there used to be 15 workers, now there are 40.
The thing with us at the moment is we have kerosene, then we have work every day. If there's no kerosene, then today, you see, I went with these people. Tomorrow, I'll have to ask someone else. If they have 4 people who usually go with them and they say, look brother, we've already got 4 people. We don't have work and then we have to stay at home. We have to stay at home and do whatever daily wage labor comes our way.
Inflation in Sri Lanka is almost 65%. Food prices are up 94%. At this rate, the fishermen simply cannot make ends meet. Before this crisis, they earned around $1.4 per day. Now, just $0.7. Their income has halved in a matter of months. Kerosene is hard to come by in the market. As foreign exchange dried up, Sri Lanka clamped down on imports. It was unable to import crude for its refineries. When the supply resumed, the prices were 4 times higher. Ask any fisherman here and they will tell you this. All they want is kerosene.
We don't need luxury goods like petrol and diesel. For our essential work, all we need is kerosene. So please give us this kerosene. Approximately 2/3 of Mannar is made up of fishermen and their livelihood is fishing. They rely on fish to survive. But continuously for the last 3 months, there's been no fishing and so people are really struggling.
Sri Lanka's major refineries have resumed operations. But there is rationing. Just 30 to 40 litres of kerosene per boat. The fishermen say it is simply not enough. They are now resorting to mixing kerosene with petrol. Sometimes they turn the engine off on the way back. Instead, they row. Almost 1 million Sri Lankans earn their livelihood from fisheries. Their lives now hung by a thread. South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has wrapped up a 4-day visit to India. It was her first since the pandemic began. Both India and Bangladesh signed 7 agreements. They also announced 5 infrastructure projects. The Prime Minister met a wide era of people, including business leaders, politicians, and descendants of Indian veterans. What does this visit mean for India-Bangladesh relations? How will it affect the geopolitics of South Asia?
Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was on a 4-day visit to India. It was her first since the COVID-19 pandemic. She was given a ceremonial welcome at India's presidential palace. Prime Minister Hasina inspected the Guard of Honor. She greeted some top Indian officials and then got down to business. Prime Minister Modi hosted Sheikh Hasina at the Hyderabad house. Their talks covered a wide range of issues: connectivity, trade, energy, defense, and food security.
We focus on possible ways to materialize our commitment and accommodate each other's priorities in a mutually beneficial manner. Connectivity, trade and commerce, investment, water resources management, security, border management, and lines of credit are some of the areas we discussed.
India and Bangladesh signed 7 MOUs, what we call Memoranda of Understanding. They also announced a total of 5 projects. First, the MOUs. The most important one concerns the Kushiyara River. It runs through Bangladesh and the Indian state of Assam. Both sides signed an agreement to share its waters. 2 agreements were signed between the railway authorities of Bangladesh and India. A, to train Bangladeshi workers in India, and B, to collaborate on IT applications for railways. Deal number 4 concerns the judiciary. Bangladeshi judicial officials will now be trained in India. Deal number 5, scientific and technological exchanges. Deal number 6, cooperation in space technology. And finally, deal number 7, cooperation in television broadcasting. The question is, will it be enough? South Asia is not some irrelevant real estate anymore. It is at the heart of a new geopolitical race. China versus India. Bangladesh has not picked sides in this conflict yet. During this visit, Sheikh Hasina reaffirmed her ties with New Delhi. She called India Bangladesh's most important neighbor, something the Indian Prime Minister also said.
पिछले कुछ सालों में हमारा आपसी सहयोग भी हर क्षेत्र में तेजी से बढ़ा है। आज बांग्लादेश भारत का सबसे बड़ा डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर और क्षेत्र में हमारा सबसे बड़ा ट्रेड पार्टनर है।
Both sides have agreed to begin talks for a special economic partnership. Right now, bilateral trade is lopsided. India exports goods worth $14 billion to Bangladesh. But the reverse flow is only $2 billion, meaning the trade is stacked in India's favor. Bangladesh is hoping to balance this trade. Beyond that, they are seeking a water-sharing agreement over River Tista. It originates in India before flowing into Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina wants an expedited settlement of water sharing. But the Indian government is weighing its options. Sharing the water could put millions of farmers in the eastern states at risk. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
Nepal's most important festival season is here. It's called Indra Yatra. The festival involves mass dancers, religious processions, and street plays. This year is even more important than previous ones. In the last 2 years, the celebrations were canceled due to COVID-19, but this year they are back in full swing. So what exactly is the story behind this iconic festival? How are the preparations going? Our next report tells you.
Soldiers and worshippers are heaving alike. Their job is to erect this giant sacred pole in Kathmandu's Basantapur Durbar Square. Reams of rope have been tied onto it. Dozens of people are pulling hard at the other end. It almost looks like a Bollywood epic. Finally, they are done. The sacred pole is erected in the middle of this ancient square. And with that, Nepal's biggest festival kicks off. The Indra Yatra.
This was erected on the Basantpur Darbar Square, which started from the regime of then King Pratap Singh Shah. The older pole which was erected during his regime has been used to construct at Arko Narayan as the main pillar of the structure. With the erection of Yashi, the Indra Yatra formally commences in Nepal.
It is an 8-day-long marathon festival, without a doubt the most important in Nepal. On the 4th day, the main event begins. The living goddess, Kumari, is taken out on a chariot procession. She tours the city, which is by then packed with devotees. Thousands line the streets during the procession. Just a glimpse of the living goddess is salvation for many. The Kumari changes every few years. She is a young girl chosen from the Newar community of Nepal. The Kumari reigns until she is 12. After that, a new living goddess is chosen.
Today was our Indra Yatra festival. The Kumari chariot was taken around the city and people came from different places to watch the festival.
The Indra Yatra is linked to the Hindu god of rain, Lord Indra. Legend has it, he came to Nepal in search of a flower. He found it at a local Newar's garden. But while collecting it, he was caught and imprisoned. For close to a year, the rain god was in custody. He was released only after his mother revealed his identity to the king. In return, she promised the Nepalese farmers enough dew throughout the coming winter. The people here still hold on to that legend. They say Nepal's foggy winter mornings are proof of that legend. Today, Indra Yatra is a national celebration. Masked dances, open-air theatres, songs, prayers. It is a staple of every Hindu and Buddhist Nepalese citizen. The Indra Yatra usually falls around late August or early December. It officially marks the end of monsoon. After the 8 days of festivities, the living goddess returns to her palace. The sacred pole is taken down and Nepal braces for the looming winter. South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of South Asia Diary. We'll be back next week with a brand new lineup of stories. Until then, stay safe. I am Mariam Wardak and you are watching WION, World is One.